Today we're going to be looking at the context of Shakespeare's Macbeth, and as we do so we're going to be considering these themes of regicide, that is the killing of a king, and witchcraft, which people in England actually believed in at the time. So the gunpowder plot happened in 1605, that is just a year before Macbeth was put on stage on the globe in 1606. Obviously Guy Fawkes had tried to blow up Parliament. This was considered a scandal, a terrorist atrocity at the time. It was still fresh in people's minds. So arguably King Duncan in Macbeth kind of represents King James I, who was King of England at the time. And arguably Banquo stands for this Banquo, his namesake in real life. This was James I's ancestor. So when we consider that prophecy that Banquo is going to give birth to a line of kings, that's just further legitimizing James I's rule. And then the fact that Macbeth is kind of representative of this Guy Fawkes-like revolutionary usurper. The fact that he's this overambitious, violent criminal just further legitimizes James I's rule. Shakespeare doesn't want to offend or upset or provoke James I. He's keeping it PC, and he wants to excuse himself from involvement in the gunpowder plot. So witchcraft was a very prevalent idea at the time. It was actually a statutory crime in England ever since 1542 with the passage of the English Witchcraft Act. So James I, this is the same guy as James I. He's called James VI in Scotland, but after the Act of Union, when he basically creates the United Kingdom, unites England, Ireland, and Scotland, he becomes James I. But at the time he was James VI, he was putting witches on court trials in Scotland from 1591. These things were really believed in. He published this famous book called Demonology only 3 years before Macbeth was put on in London. So these ideas like equivocation, the use of ambiguous language to hide the truth, like fair is foul and foul is fair in Act 1, Scene 1. So what's going on there? They're using very ambiguous language, the witches. And this idea of the witch mark, we see that in Act 5, Scene 1 with Lady Macbeth, who says, "Out, out, damned spot." She could be referring to a witch mark, that is, a mark put on a woman's body apparently by the devil. So Lady Macbeth is cursed at this point. And remember, people really believed in these things, so this would have been really scary for the audience. So at the time, Shakespeare's writing during the age of the Jacobean theatre, the Elizabethan theatre as it's otherwise known, the Renaissance theatre. Other playwrights were writing similar plays like The White Devil about overambitious men committing violent crimes. And when I talk about stagecraft, I'm not talking about literary devices and techniques, I'm talking about theatrical ones. So instead of similes and metaphors, we're talking about things on the stage like props, lighting, sound design, costume, all these things. As an example, in Act 1, Scene 1 and Act 4, Scene 1, the witch's entrance is accompanied by thunder and lightning. This would have been kind of sounded out with live sound effects that are adding to this sense of the disruption of the natural order. So those sounds could have been produced by a machine, a cannon, but it's really just contributing to atmosphere there. Thanks for watching, guys.